Hi, I'm Amalia Brightley-Hodges, Managing Director and second generation of Family Business Place. And this is my mum, Anita. We are on day 2 of lockdown during the coronavirus pandemic around the world, and it's devastating. The thing about being a family business is when you're locked down with your family and you have your own filming studio, you can carry on recording. So we just thought, wouldn't it be amazing if we could just keep putting some videos out there to help our members, any family business who is tuning in, who is thinking, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to go. And today we are going to talk about something that a lot of people will be facing in the days and weeks and months to come, and that is the prospect of losing their business. Now, obviously, this coronavirus has been devastating on so many family businesses, and the government are doing an amazing job with their loans and the employee retention scheme, and fingers crossed, everything crossed, that we will all be able to make it out the other side. However, it doesn't stop you worrying, panicking, thinking, what am I going to do for my staff, for my family, for all of our suppliers, our customers, our clients? How am I going to keep things going? How am I going to keep them afloat? And actually, what happens if the very worst happens? So I thought I'd do a little interview with my mum today because 12 years ago, she lost her business. And there were some very, very dark moments that I know so many of you will be going through at this very moment in time. So I thought it would be useful, and Mum, you're happy to share what happened back then. So let's start from the beginning. What happened?
Okay. So I had been running a very, very successful international boutique branding agency. I was blessed. I travelled around the world and worked with the most fantastic blue chip clients, won awards in my studio, and the best talent ever. So, you know, I had a 6-figure salary. We lived in a lovely house. My husband could look after the children, didn't have to have a job. I just loved it. And I think that when I look back, I was one of the few women at that time in London that had a studio with more than 5 people that they employed. Most women were second in command. So that's really the business that I had, and I just adored it. It was brilliant, and I couldn't believe what I was doing, really. But I met a lot of people that, particularly the C-suite, that really believed in what I was doing, and marketing directors, and I just had a ball, really. It was fantastic. And as a lot of practitioners who work in very, very small businesses, I belonged to what we called a small executive group. So there were 8 of us. And we were all from different businesses. I mean, one ran a horse riding business. Another was a graphic supplies business, a printer. Someone else ran a heating and ventilating agency. Someone was running a fantastic business with pre-prepared food. It was wonderful. And we would meet once a month and talk about the barriers to our success. And we could talk about anything, really. They became my best friends, really. I guess the board you can't afford. We had a wonderful facilitator from Cranfield, and she was just amazing, Mary Helen Sam. And I think that I wasn't aware that as 2008 was coming into being, that was a monumental crash that was on its way. And I think when you were running the business then, you weren't really that aware of it. I set up a business in 1990 when we were in a crash, and then 2008. And I remember my bookkeeper saying to me, well, Anita, how are we going to pay the wages this month? And I said, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Well, we haven't got any money in the account. And I said, well, I guess I could cash my pension in. So I cashed my pension in to pay the wages that month. And it just so happened we had a meeting, and it was at my studio. And we were just telling everyone about how things were. And the team there said, what about you, Anita? I said, well, I've had to cash my pension in to pay for the wages. And I remember that the leader of the group sort of said, you must be joking. What is your bookkeeper doing? And I said, well, he just said that I have to do that. And I had no idea where I was with my finances. So they said, go downstairs, send him up, and then when we tell you, we want you to come and have a chat. So my bookkeeper was working that day, so he went upstairs into the boardroom, sat down with the group, and then he came down stairs after about half an hour. And when I returned, they said, you have to fire him now, like now. And I just said, why? Because he's not giving you the advice you need at this time. So I think looking back, he wasn't, the bookkeeper I had wasn't stealing or anything. He was just incompetent and frightened, I think. But, and I had employed him for over 10 years. So it wasn't as if I was standing over his shoulder, you know. And then my friends flew in an FD who had a look to see if I could, you know, if I could turn the business around because it was in dire straits. And then after that, a solvency practitioner came to see me, and I think that was when I just cried and cried. But he's used to that, bless him. And so we started the beginning of the journey, and I was absolutely on my own with my insolvency practitioner. And I had to phone everybody I owed money to. I think I only had about £30,000, which is nothing. And my biggest, is it debtor or creditor? Debtor. I owed £6,000 to. So most people were copywriters or print or little bits of money, really, because I thought I was quite good at keeping my outgoings. My outgoings good. And every single one of them said to me, because I had to phone them up and say, I owe you money, I'm going into liquidation, because that was of the different scenarios that we talked about. Voluntary liquidation was what was right for me. And they all said, you know, we've been working with you, Anita, for 15 years, 20 years. It could be me tomorrow. Whatever you need, let me help you. And two of my dearest friends, one was a copywriter, Greg Sheridan, and the other was a photographer, Phil Starling. And they just reached out to me and said, whatever you want, whatever you need, I will do that for you. So, you know, I felt blessed. And then one of our group, who was also one of my suppliers, looked at my studio and said, well, I've got a room this big in my offices. You can have it for a year. And I owed him the biggest amount of money, I think £6,000 or something. And when he left us, he then emailed me and said, so when are you coming? And when I got there, he had set me up with telephones, computers, I mean, everything. So that was wonderful. Then a friend of mine said, I've got a car you can have. Another friend said, I'm going to pay a congestion charge. Someone just gave me a wad of money and said, I don't want it back. And I just thought, oh my God, this is just incredible, really. So that's what happened. With all of my staff, they were so brilliant that I had no trouble placing them with other design agencies. They were just the best. So everyone got a new job. And you were my personal assistant.
Was.
And I remember you had been working with work experience with Ros Reisman. And she had gone to Sky. I think she'd gone to Sky and invited you to have a coffee, drinks with cocktails with her. And I'd said to you, she's going to offer you a job. And when she does, you take it. No, she won't offer me a job. She just wants to have a chat. I said, no one takes a graduate out to have cocktails and take the job. And I remember you went there and came back and I said, well, she did offer me a job and I turned it down. I couldn't believe it. And you said to me, where you go, I go, Mum. Big swallow. So all my staff had jobs. Amalia wanted to stay with me. I had a few clients. I went to see them all. And they were all just incredibly, incredibly lovely. And I continued to do work, but under a new name because I had to reinvent myself as Brightley-Hodges Associates. And I remember one of the things we had to do in order to close the business down was to have every single item in my studio valued, and I had nowhere to put it. And I had handmade sofas, glass furniture. Well, you know, it's just absolutely stunningly beautiful. Of course it was. Thousands of pounds worth of books. And I think the gentleman that came in to value it all, to put it into the pot of money, it just gave me 500 quid. Everything was handmade. It was just so painful for me, but had nowhere, nothing to do. And I couldn't do anything. I remember I felt really, really isolated and we had to get a skip in to put a lot of stuff. I think at that time when the skip was there, and I think me, you, my sister, my brother-in-law, my husband, all our family, we just came up to the studio, didn't we? And we just put everything in the skip. And I think that I just felt so sick. I thought I was going to die. All my beautiful, beautiful work of 20 years I adored. All these gorgeous things that we had, everything went into that skip. Do you remember that?
I do remember it,
You know, it was, but it was also, I think when you go through these things, it brings out the best and the worst in people, and particularly in families. And I think when that happened with me and my sister, because I asked her to help me, you know, that really was a healing part of asking her. It was a way in for her to come into my life, because she's never been an entrepreneur, never run a business. So she couldn't see what the problem was, really. It was all my fault, you know. And yes, it was all my fault. So that's really what happened. And then I just drove in Barbara's car, my very best friend, Barbara Gray, drove to London every day. I prayed while I was driving all the way there, and I prayed as I was driving all the way back. I prayed in church, and I prayed in my sleep. And I really think that God only gives you as much as you can bear, and I could barely bear it. So for those that are, you know, thinking of losing their business, I really understand. I just wanted the world to stop. I just wanted the floor to open out. I just wanted to be swallowed up. And I just felt sick every single day of every minute of the day, unless I was sleeping.
So let's rewind a little bit, because I think when you're faced with the unimaginable, which is losing everything you have ever worked for, it's so easy to bury your head in the sand and pretend it's not happening. And I know that will happen to a lot of people, particularly people who perhaps like you didn't quite understand the finances so much and had someone else doing it for you and you just trust in that person. But actually, you know in your heart of hearts when things aren't going right, and you know when there's not money in the bank. So talk a little bit about burying your head in the sand and what people can do to move away from that and start asking for help.
Okay, so the first thing I had to do was work with a new bookkeeper. And in fact, it was her working with me that realised that my bookkeeper had been short paying HMRC to the tune of £100,000. But it was only when he'd gone that I discovered this. And I don't know how it worked out, but also our auditors didn't pick it up. And I'm not sure to this day whether or not that was right, really, because I feel that the people that I felt had let me down were the very people I couldn't do the work myself.
Yeah.
I couldn't do my own bookkeeping because I was running a business. Yeah. It was international. I left home at 6 a.m, got home, God knows what time, at night time, but I loved it. I appointed an accountancy firm that I thought was doing the right thing by me, and they clearly hadn't done their job properly. But what I had to do was, first of all, get to the bottom of how much I owed everybody, then write a list, and then get in touch with every single one of them and say, this has happened, please bear with me, give me some time to get my strategy together, and I will be in touch with you. And then what I had to do was work with my insolvency practitioner, who was just marvellous, you know, who held my hand every step of the way. I mean, I cannot tell you how grateful I am. And I think the company was called W.H. Fisher, I think they were called. I can't remember now, but a lovely man called David. And so he just said, right, we need to do this. And I automatically felt as if, okay.
So getting things written down.
Absolutely.
So you could see them clear as day, rather than being things that you know are happening, that you know you need to look at, but actually avoiding it because you don't want to know, you don't want to see. Get it written down. Get someone else to sit down and do it with you.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And however frightening that is, at least it's written down, you can see it.
Yeah.
And I think this there is a certain amount of what would you call denial, you know, and it's never going to right itself. And I think that's the thing about losing a business. It's not going to right itself. And so then I had to think, right, with my insolvency practitioner, what are the steps we need to do? And of course, the biggest thing were two things. One is HMRC. I had to think about how I was going to do that. And the second was, how do I deal with the staff that I had employed? How do I make it good with them? And I paid them more redundancy money. and I helped them find a job. And in fact, I think I placed just about everybody with a job because I had great contacts then. We had a great reputation. So your reputation is everything. And I think when this sort of thing happens to you, it is your reputation and everything that's gone before you that helps you get out of the shit. And I think that came back at me, and I'm grateful for it, really.
So we're amongst a community of family business owners. Yeah. And like you say, you have reputation and you have integrity and you have trust. And those three things could potentially stop you from going under, because if you can ring the people you owe money to and you can get some extended terms to help with your cash flow, if your staff believe and trust in you that you will do the right thing by them and that you will see them through this, if they can just bear with you, and integrity. And I think, if nothing else, that's what family businesses have, isn't it? And those three things, if you come out of that denial phase, if you write everything down and you ask for help, those things could save you. They could ease your cash flow at a time when you think, okay, I owe £10,000. I don't have that in the bank. I'm over, I'm done for. But actually, if you could just pick up the phone and speak to the people you owe money to, that could go a long way towards helping.
I have to let you into a little secret. I'd never borrowed from the bank, ever. And I had a really great bank manager, and he was working at NatWest Bank. And his name was Andy. And he was always trying to get me to take a loan, And I said, no, I don't need a loan. And then when I bought my own studio, he was the one that gave me a mortgage for that. And I remember being on the phone, and I was sobbing down the phone and saying, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to do. And he said, Anita, you're not the only person. And people aren't going to be looking at your business that, so intently. They're going to be looking at the bigger ones. If you can make those interest payments, just make those interest payments, then you're going to be okay. And that, he has been the kindest. Apart from the bank manager gave me my first overdraft and my first account, the kindest thing he ever said to me. And he said, if you want to phone me anytime, call me. Do you know what? I did. And he was marvellous. But also, I was in that funny little, I wasn't a family business. Didn't regard myself as a family. I didn't even know what a family business was. All my clients are blue chips. So as far as I was concerned, I was just a business stuck in a really, really bad place. So it's quite interesting when we think about family business, because I became a family business. And once I got into that, it made sense. And I think throughout all of this, I can only look back now and think, things happen for a reason. God has a plan for me. But when you're in it, you can't see it for yourself until you look back. And when you look back and join the dots, I realised why I'm here now.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll come on to that. We'll talk about, opportunity. But so for people now who are in a really dark place, and there will be a lot of them, I think the lessons here are to face up to the facts.
Yes.
What do you owe? Who do you owe it to? And get it written down somewhere on a piece of paper. The other thing is to stand up and ask for help.
Absolutely.
If you owe that money and you can get another 30 days on it, it gives you some breathing space and some head space to think about, right, I've got myself another 30 days, let's make this happen. And that's going back to the good old-fashioned values that you were built on as a family business of integrity and trust and loyalty. They will help see you through, because reputation and goodwill will go a long way. And we've already seen that with some of the restaurants that are closing, that are now having to turn into delivery companies, and they're delivering meals and people are buying them. They're buying their roast dinner from the local pub, because they're part of the community. They're a family business. The people that run them, their name's above the door, you can see them. And I think you have to remember, go back to those good old-fashioned things. Yes. And people will stick by you however they can. So, yeah, if you're having a really, really crappy time this week, in the coming weeks, in the coming months, just go back to those real cornerstones of what it means to be a family business, and time maybe to call in some favours.
Totally. And also, really your friends and your colleagues and your network and your connections, they are really needed when you're going through hard times. When we're in good times, everyone wins. We're doing business, we feed our family, we have staff, we grow, reputation, products, everything. But those connections can be at some point quite superficial, or they might just be, you're in it for the money, or you need to pay another wage bill, or whatever it is. But I think that when things go wrong, excuse me, sorry, when things go wrong, then you really know who those that were sincere, because they're the ones that say, they're the ones that put their arms around you, really. And they're the ones that say, what can I do? And they're the ones that say, don't worry, Anita, I've got some work coming up for you. So I think that it does separate the chaff from the wheat, really.
And it's really easy to feel like you're completely alone.
Totally.
That this is all on your shoulders. But actually try and spread some of that load. Ask people for help, call in some favours, go back to building up a community and a network. Okay, so we were quite drastic in this situation. We lost our business. You owe £100,000 to HMRC, you don't come back from that. So the business closed. Fingers crossed, people watching this today will not be at that point just yet, and they may well be in the next few days and weeks. But let's talk about finding opportunity in some terrible, terrible times and what you need to do to grab hold of that and make it work.
Okay, there are two things I want to say, really. A very, very dear friend of mine, Barbara Gray, asked me, what do I need? And I said, I just want you to phone me every day. And then she said to me, Anita, it's really hard. Now you're in it, but this too shall pass. And I think what I want to say to people that are facing this, when you're in it, you can't imagine tomorrow. But what I will say now, I look back, this too shall pass. I'm not saying it's going to be better, but this too shall pass. And the other I want to say is that adversity is the mother of invention and creativity. When you are up against it, okay, your natural instinct is survival. It's fight or flight, and we ain't going anywhere, all right? So it's fight. And then once you've made that decision, and you then start thinking, right, I'm not stupid, what can I do? And then what you find is opportunities present themselves. I really believe that if you are open to things, opportunities will knock at your door. And I think that's really hard when you're in the thick of it. But if you have good connections, if you've been doing business with people, if people love you, if your staff will rate you, then you've got to sum up all your courage and just be open to opportunities. I would have taken a job anywhere. I would have swept the floor. I would have worked in the shop. I'm not frightened of hard work. But little tiny things happened, and it's very, very strange.
So the agency closed.
Yes.
We had a tiny little business called Family Business Place. And it was a very small, couple of events, a little magazine. And we realised that we had one ball of energy, and we could either use that energy going after your bookkeeper, filing lawsuits, trying to, hunt everything down and go down that route, or we could take this ball of energy and we could put our all into something else. And that was Family Business Place. So talk to me about that.
So it's exactly what we did, because I had friends that said, why don't you go after the lawyers? Why don't you go after the bookkeeper? And I said, because I have a mortgage to pay, I have a family to raise, my energy needs to be going forward. So when you are thinking about yourself, in fact, I was talking to someone this morning about that very, very same thing. You come up with an idea, and then everyone around you who can't believe you just lost your business, and then you come up with some other strange idea, they think you've gone completely mad. But I think if you're an entrepreneur, you're a risk taker. I didn't have anything else to lose, except my house. Yeah, I did. But anyway. And when we decided around a Family Business Place, that was really combining with my experience in branding, communication, small business, and thinking, well, who do they turn to when they need advice? Who do they go to when they need to understand, new techniques that are happening? They can't afford it. Who do they turn to when they need some good, just really, you're walking a mile in my shoes. And I felt there was no one out there that was doing that. And there are over 4 million of us in this country. So then I got to thinking, this is interesting, because actually it's all about communication. It's all about marketing. It's all about branding. And it's all about building a community. We didn't have a community then because we didn't know any family business, did we? You know, I remember being asked to go to this family business conference in Bristol thinking, where's Bristol? Do you know who I am? Milan or New York? Bristol. And then it's family business. Well, that's a sausage maker, isn't it? You know. And I went along and I was just blown away by the stories, the heartache, the adversity, the success, the families. And then I thought, well, actually branding, which is what I did for a living, is all about telling stories. So that's really was the crux of it. And then I just thought, well, I can design magazines. I've never held an event before, but how hard can it be? And I think that's the other thing. I think I didn't wait to be good at it. And I think that's something that we've always cherished, actually, haven't we? I mean, particularly you, with doing everything you're doing on Kajabi with the new platform. I think when you're an entrepreneur, you don't wait until you can do it before you do it. You just get on and do it, and then you learn along the way. And I think that's a trademark of an entrepreneur, really. And you believe in yourself. I had nothing else to lose. You just believe in yourself, and it's going to be okay.
So I have a phrase that everyone takes the mickey out of. You don't have to get it right. You just have to get it going.
Absolutely.
And I think, you know, you're right. If you've got a mortgage to pay and you've got a family to raise, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to get it going. Okay, got a few more minutes left. Let's talk about what you would say to someone else who's facing really, really dark times at the moment. This, you know, pandemic may have crippled their business. How do they get out of bed tomorrow?
Well, I think for starters, we're here. So Family Business Place is here, especially for these times. And we have a community. And, you know, I've been through it. You're wonderful with reaching out to people. We have a wonderful community that are so generous and so loving and so kind and so vulnerable. So, you know, if anyone is out there and they really are in a pickle, just pick up the phone, get in touch with me or you, and we're here for you. That's the most important thing. The other that got me out of a really dark place was when a friend of mine said, I'm going to Uganda for the weekend. Do you want to come? And I thought, well, I haven't got anything else better to do. Yeah, I'll go. And I went and I cried when I saw a village having no water. And I came back and I said to the family, didn't I, we're going to trek the Sahara Desert and we're going to build a well. And we did. And we have 30 now that want to go. So what I would also say is, even in your darkest hour, give. Give, grow, glow. Give your time. Give money. Because no matter how shit your life is, someone else is having an even worse time and they could be dying and they could be vulnerable. And I think that has held me in such good stead. It's helped me really appreciate all the good things. And the other, I know you're honest too, but the other is sometimes just stop, think, appreciate what's going on around you. Don't sweat the small stuff. And I think just give yourself space and step back and just think, you have got friends out there. We're here for all our family businesses. If there are any ideas, if there are family firms out there that could do with some extra help, then you can hire other family businesses. You said, didn't you? Let's make a pact that we will help family businesses thrive. Yeah. Give a piece of business to another family business. But that piece of business now, maybe you might need someone to pick some apples, or you might someone to work in admin, because there are certain businesses that are really thriving because of necessity and others aren't. So I think it's about kindness, love, ask for help, you're right. Appreciate what you have. Don't feel you've let anyone down, and don't feel that you have failed, because you haven't.
I've just seen what it says in your mug. It says, make good things happen.
Yeah, that's great, isn't it? That's great.
So this is really tough for all of us, but we will get there and we will get there together. But reach out and ask for help. You've got this. Well done, Mum.
Absolutely.
Well done.